Hi, folks. Tacky Talk time with State Representative Tacky Chan of Quincy on a Tuesday this time. Tacky, how are you?
Yeah, good morning, Joe, on a tacky Tuesday. On actually probably the warmest day we've had in 2025 so far.
Yeah, I can't wait. The crocuses are croaking and signs of spring are everywhere, so it's good stuff.
Well, ants made an appearance in the house, so it's
Oh, yeah,
getting
that
warm.
too.
And the permafrost is giving up a bit. So it's I noticed the other day, I was like, oh, we got ants. Oh, it's clearly things are thawing out. So
Yeah, one of the forecasters started to talk about allergy season and pollen and stuff, so that'll be starting up too.
well, I know we wish after the Rocky, even last week, Rocky, warm, cold, warm, cold. Now we're discussing allergy season, and I mean the ducks came back a bit early this year. Ducks in the marshland, which isn't necessarily unusual, but it's not as common as one would think for a guy that lives by a marsh. But I've noticed that the birds are flocking back up a little bit at a time.
Hmm, that's good news. Good stuff. Good signs of things to come, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah.
And also, hopefully, good news for our heating bills. That's where we left off last week, Jackie.
The cliffhanger last week regarding your natural gas bills in particular. So the Healy administration announced yesterday they have a plan, which is still very vague to many of us regarding what the plan is to try to bring down our distribution costs. So those who are not aware, but we're going to review for those who are aware, your electric bills and your gas bills basically in three components. We're going to keep it super simple. So you have the actual energy itself, would be electricity or the gas, and then you have the distribution and transmission charges. Transmission charges go interstate, that's fairly regulated. The distribution charge is local distribution, meaning those are the small wires and pipes that connect to your homes. Those are regulated by the state. The DPU sets a price after administrative hearing between the utility company and the Attorney General's office. Obviously, AG is arguing to keep prices down, and the utilities obviously trying to increase price. The ultimate goal of utility is to get a rate of return because the utility actually kind of loans is basically revolving credit in many ways for people's um, uh, upkeeping the infrastructure system. So it's kind of like their big CGI revolving credit. They want to return to reflect the basic revolving credit behavior they have because people think that I pay my bill, it is past due. No, the utility company isn't a past due business. They still have to pay for things, not wait for you to pay them so they can pay somebody else. So they're always paying whether the bonds, infrastructure costs, personnel, offices, whatever. I mean, running a business costs, those costs are constantly being paid, whether you pay your electric bill or gas bill or not. So it's kind of it's not as simple as cash in, cash out. So it's a little complicated in that sense. So it kind of, I refer to utilities as kind of a strange revolving credit line where when they don't have sufficient cash, they actually loan the ratepayers money just to cover themselves and creates this huge rate of return, which can exceed 10%, depending on the DPU's establishment rates. Rates are done every 5 years, unless the utility needs a sooner rate adjustment for whatever reason. And rates do go up and down. So that's basically the super, super short version. So what we're talking about is the distribution rate, the delivery rate, which is the local small wires, small pipes on your street that the DPU has oversight on. The governor's office has announced some kind of plan, which we still don't know exactly what's in that plan. But part of the plan is to take money from the Clean Energy Fund and give it directly back to customers in a rate adjustment. So you're basically going to get a one-time rate relief of $50. It's their plan, which means the utility is going to get paid the $50. Your rates go down $50. And then that keeps the utility whole because once the rate plan is set, it's set essentially it's good as law because it's administrative law hearing. It's a ruling, so that's you can't go back and change the rates without reopening a hearing on that under Chapter 30A of the administrative law. And also there's a whole due process component, and there's also federal law regarding rate setting. So it isn't like the DP goes and says, I'm going to drop you 10% tomorrow morning, and then you just walk away. It doesn't quite work that way. This actually has been an administrative hearing where I get due process by utility and the AG's office on arguments on increasing or decreasing rates. And contrary to popular belief, the AG's office goal is not strictly to decrease rates. The AG's goal is to try to ensure that customers get safe and reliable service at a reasonable cost. So, the key part is safe and reliable. If it's safe and reliable, the cost is reasonable, the AG's office will endorse a proposal that follows that principle. So, the utilities have deferred. They're not eating it, as I said two podcasts ago. They're deferring the 10-ish% rate collection to sometime in the summer with a redistribute at the cost in a longer period. So it isn't like one massive chunk again. They would not going to do that. And then the question also becomes what is going on in the Mass Save program. But more importantly, the Energy Efficiency Advisory Council. I've been getting calls about who makes these decisions, and that's who does. And the utility company can't fight the Energy Efficiency Advisory Council. They just set a budget and they give it to utility. Utility has to give it to DPU as part of their making program every 3 years. And it's a tune of $5 billion. And I remember this program was less than $1 billion back in 2008. So the real mystery question, I think all of us listening to this would have the same question. What do you do with $5 billion in solar energy efficiency programs, which we know is Mass Save? Like, what are you actually doing with this much money over a 3-year time period? And in case you're wondering, people that are on this group is energy efficiency advocates, environmental groups, people that work in this industry, the industrial and commercial businesses and residentials are represented, but also the Attorney General and the Department of Energy Resources, which oversees it, also on it. So the governor's administration is part of this Energy Efficiency Council, as well as the Attorney General's office. So this becomes an interesting question about who gets to look into the books of the EEA, the Energy Efficiency Advisory Council, because since the AG is actually part of it, the governor's administration, in terms of that part of Secretariat, this thing needs a bit of sunshine here, and I'm not exactly sure who has the authority to go in there.
Yeah, it sounds like there needs to be some kind of an independent audit, watchdog agency, something to account for where the money is going.
Yeah, the DPU could look into it, I suspect, but it's not actually a utility. DPU's purview is limited to the utilities. It doesn't go beyond that scope. So, I mean, unless the legislature directs them, which would be very out of line because it's outside their scope of doing work, the governor could initiate an outside auditor, whether it be a third-party private company, which could be the best idea, or, put a request into another quasi-independent agency such as the Inspector General. People forget the Inspector General is quasi-independent. So, I'm not sure exactly what the best way to go about it, but I'm rather troubled that nobody's talked about, well, we got to lower your rates, but no one actually said, well, what is going on with the guys that put together this monstrous budget?
Right, and as you say, it's just a deferment, but it appears that the problem is created internally by the states, and the utilities are kind of beholden to those policies.
Yeah, I'm not advocating any sympathy for the utilities. Trust me. I mean, I spend most of the time kicking them around. But I like to be fair and like to be honest about it, and I like to say, hey, this is how it works, right? In this case, the utilities, have a seat at the table, but they only one vote. They don't have a big vote. It's not weighted by the size of your business. It's it's 11 people, individual votes, and they're going to get outvoted by the pro-environmental folks, and administration, as well as the advocates, which make up the majority of this council. And this is just how it is, folks. So the utility companies, can vote no, but the reality is, no matter what, they still are the administrators, and the rates are adjusted through your bill, which is administratively done by the utility company. So they're kind of like in this weird spot where they, opposing it creates a political quandary with particularly environmental groups. They really don't have enough power to say no other than have one vote, and even then they still have to execute the council's proposal on the budget, and they have to bring it to DPU on their behalf, because since they're the ones that are the administrator for your bills, there's no other way to do this. It's not like a party can decide they're going to affect your delivery/distribution charge on their own. And I say natural gas is a relatively issue. Before 2008, This energy efficiency charge was not part of a natural gas bill. There was no energy efficiency with natural gas. Mass Save, while predominantly is electric bill driven program, and what before 2008, it did stretch into other things that are non light bulbs to try to insulate your home, like it's or just insulate your home. I just said it, right? Insulation. Right? That's not a new program. It's been around for a very long time, and that actually helps with your natural gas bill through insulation, right? So it's different because they basically got a blank checkbook from the Green Communities Act in 2008. In case you wanted, it was before my time, so I wasn't here for that one. But it's in that gap year when I was in the AG's office, which is how I know this stuff, because I had to deal with administrative editors as a result of the Green Communities Act of 2008. That's like I'm aware of all this stuff. In case you all want to know,
and the governor certainly knows that she was the attorney general.
Actually, she wasn't. She only worked for Martha Cope.
Oh, okay, all right.
She wasn't the attorney general yet until 2012.
Okay.
But regardless, that's how come I actually know what this is, because I got a front row seat during my 3-year span at the AG's office of this whole thing unfolding. So not like I'm the expert, but when you have someone who has a first person account, it makes you as close as possible. So
yeah. And the $50 credit, I mean, these rates were set back in November. So the utilities have already been collecting way more than that up until this point.
Well, the utility collects it and passes it through.
All right. It
goes straight to the Mass Save program. Programs designed by the Energy Efficiency Advisory Council, and Mass Save is this not-for-profit weird critter that is a partnership with utility companies. So the utilities don't actually collect any money. They don't receive a rate of return on it. They receive actually no financial benefit.
Okay. All right.
The energy efficiency charge, they receive no benefit. And on the electrical side, we have what's called decoupling. During the Val Patrick's administration, utilities rates don't have a performance base anymore. It's not based on performance. It's based on decoupling now, which means that the utility company is always made whole on the rate of return, regardless of whether there's reduction of energy consumption. So again, I like to say that, I try to encourage people to try to save electricity to reduce their bills, try to find ways to conserve usage as much as you can possibly can. But the idea back during the Val Patrick's administration is that we could reduce consumption. The utilities companies' concern was that they'll be hurt by lack of sales. Now, one of the misconceptions that is often put out there by advocates is that utility companies are out to try to make more money by selling you more power. The answer in Massachusetts is kind of yes, kind of no, because regardless of how much power they sell you, even if it's a reduction, there's a rate mechanism in decoupling, which don't even start me how that works. It's complicated math, where the utility company would not guarantee their minimum rate of return. They sell a lot of power. Obviously, they're going to exceed the rate of return because just sell a lot. But the goal is to sell less and then at least make a minimum amount of money. And the minimum amount of money is sufficient to keep the lights on, so to speak, in their business, but also to be able to ensure their shareholders are made whole no matter what. So it is not in the utility's interest to constantly sell you more electricity under a decoupling rate system. It works because in this state it's big enough to sustain it, but this was a little state on decoupling where you lose major industrial commercial customers. Maine tried this. We were looking at this many years ago. Because Maine lost a lot of major industries, all that cost was shifted on to consumers, and they had to end decoupling because the rate increase was too much. So they went back to performance-based rates, I believe, in Maine, which is basically the utility gets paid for good business practice. Yep. So yeah, this is a state where utilities are not encouraged to sell you more electricity.
So now that the credit for electricity customers here in Quincy, we have municipal aggregation. So does the city get that credit, or do customers get that credit?
Municipal aggregation is selling you only the energy component, so that's the actual electricity. We talk about delivery distribution charge, which the state still has regulatory control over. So the governor's proposal is to give you a $50 credit on your delivery distribution charge. So you get a $50 reduction at some point, perhaps in 1 month. A $50 reduction will show up on your bill as a negative $50. It'll be itemized. So aggregation has nothing to do with the delivery
Okay.
commission charge.
Okay, all right. And the governor also spoke a little bit about developing a discount program for middle income, I think she said, and to make it more accessible. I don't know if there's any details on that.
Not sure how they would do that because we already have a low income rate that follows the federal poverty calculation. You as a rate customer actually are subsidizing that rate because again, at the decoupling, the utility is made whole under any circumstances. So all customers subsidize a very small portion of the population right now because people have jobs. Obviously, when unemployment is very high, shifts where you and I are going to be covering a larger portion of the population that is unemployed and qualify for low income rate. So right now, obviously, low income rate is not as heavily utilized because unemployment's at 4%. And I'm sure it varies because certain parts of the state have higher poverty levels than other parts of the state. So
Right.
since the federal poverty calculation on the low income rate, certain parts of the state, the higher percentage of folks utilizing low income. Great, you as a whole customer base would be subsidizing that group because utilities can't be hurt.
Mhm.
So if she's trying to propose a middle income or lower middle income, whatever rate she thinks of, it's going to have to go to the administrative law process, set up a rate mechanism. I think we have 8, or is it 9 different rates because you have low income, then you have the residential income, and then you have, I believe, 6 or 7 other classes for commercial and industrial rates, depending on the size of your industry.
Mm.
So obviously, the biggest customers or industrial customers, they're the ones obviously hit the hardest regarding energy consumption, no matter how much they bring down. A air plate manufacturing plant in Western Mass, there are still some that make parts, believe it or not, in the state, consume an enormous amount of power. And, obviously they pay more. So when it comes to subsidizing bills, it affects that end of the spectrum the hardest. And we do have some of the highest energy rates in the country because we're at the end of the line, literally on energy providing. I'm not sure how they're going to do this rate adjustment. And the reason I say that is because if they create a new subsidized residential rate, it's going to have to pick up by the rest of the residents that's above, pays more than that rate,
Right.
all the industrial commercial customers.
Yep. Okay. So it's going to have to go through the legislative process, right? It's going to be in form of a bill.
No, this can be done administratively through DPU.
Oh, okay.
There is no legislative process because rate mechanism is completely set by DPU. They've always had this ability to do this. For example, each rate mechanism for distribution charge is different. So I talk about the low income charge, but the DPU can readjust the rate mechanism throughout the other rates classes on what the different distribution charges would be. So just because you're paying your rate as a residential customer, do not assume that same rate is the rate that a large industrial customers pay.
Oh, very interesting. Okay. Also, the governor spoke a little bit about the impact of these third-party energy suppliers and how that might be driving up costs. Do you think that's true?
No, it's this is a big red herring. That's really complicated, and I've been fighting the governor's folks. When she was AG, now governor, now and also Attorney General Campbell, when a lot of misinformation is going out there. Yes, there are bad actors. Yes, they could do a better job on disclosure. The impact on consumers is a very tiny percentage, or less than 1%. It's like not even a full percentage point that are affected by this fraudulent act. My attitude has always been the same: is that DPU should do their job and start revoking licenses of folks that have practiced this deceptive behavior. I mean, if it's an issue of funding, obviously the legislation can provide more funding if they ask for it. I understand there's a staffing issue through state government in the whole because the private sector is paying so much better than the government sector right now. People forget we have to compete with workers too, and it's salary driven, especially in the high cost of living. And DPU, like every agency, is having hiring problems. So people stay, and then people are gone for another job before you blink. This is like everywhere else. Government's no different. So what does that mean? Well, I have a bill proposal out there to increase the barrier of entry by raising the bond requirements, requiring greater transparency, language access, a whole lot of other consumer disclosures. Otherwise, you put your license at risk. Try to get, try to get rid of the bad actors by fly-by-nighters by making a higher barrier of entry, by giving more teeth to DPU regarding oversight and regulation, setting up actually a low income, see if we can set up a low income energy rate, which is done in Ohio, I believe, which I never thought of before, but in competitive supply we can do something like that and actually lock the rate in, just like a municipal aggregation with low income folks. Maybe we could do that for middle class folks or lower middle class folks if the governor's office and the EP was able to come up with a middle class rate. You have to create a whole new rate class. With this new rate class, maybe we can consider exploring a different aggregate rate for that rate, another rate class as well. And then some better abilities to be able to get you on and off basic service more simply. The way it's set up is just not onerous for you to get off basic service and get on basic service utility company as well. It's just very difficult. They make it unusually hard. And we should be able to get people automatically back onto basic service once a competitive supply contract ends. This is actually part of the problem too. It's not necessarily just utility and the competitive supply. It's actually both need to actually have better work together.
Yeah, it's like many subscription services, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, in other states don't have this kind of problem. I mean, as we looked in this issue, where's some reason just downright onerous by trying to make a better, smooth operation of utilities and competitive supply regarding allow customers to pick a competitive supply company and get on and off basic rate. And in case you're all wondering, utility companies make no money on basic rate. They get administrative costs charged, but no rate of return. So utility actually has no incentive to sell you the basic rate. But the basic rate is adjusted every 6 months, which a new bid's going to go out soon, which actually oil prices are pretty low right now.
Yes.
So if they time it correctly, perhaps the basic rate's going to go down for this past winter, but it's every 6 months and it's variable. Competitive supply can give you a locked-in rate for 1 year. Now you're gambling whether or not you beat the system or you're going to lose to the system because you don't know what energy rates are. We can lock yourself in 1, 2, 3, 4 years. I don't think it's a 4. I think 3 is the maximum. But you got to be cautious on auto renewals. If you don't want to auto renew, you got to be conscious of that, just like your cell phone bills. And you got to be conscious of the fact that you don't want to auto renew, then you got to tell them you're not going to auto renew. Obviously redefine print. This is kind of part of the disclosure issue regarding multilingual that a lot of bad actors is targeting non-English speaking population and lower income folks, without actually telling what they're going to get. And like I said, it's a very tiny part of the business. It's less than 1%. So obviously the push had been from the governor to eliminate it. The AG's office wants to eliminate it. But then, the majority of customers are residential customers in Massachusetts, makes it the super majority, you and I. And it actually would be sufficient, in my mind, to force the utility company to go back into requiring a safe and reliable service for electrical distribution. That's right, electrical providing, not distribution, electrical provider. Yeah. Because utility companies have to go buy back power companies. And your rate bill cost, by the way, they didn't tell you how they're going to do it, but I know how they're going to do it. Your electric bill is going to go up on the distribution charge, delivery charge, so they can buy guaranteed power in the form of either owning or having major stock interest in a power plant, so they can guarantee you power. And if they're going to do that through basic rates, they won't care about the lowest price. They're just going to get whatever they can, any way they can, to ensure they meet their safe and reliable component. This is the part that Globe does a terrible job trying to explain to you because they don't understand it, to be honest with them, talk to those folks. And this is something that has not been disclosed by the governor AG's office, and that's how this will have to play out. Because they'll go back to a rate setting mechanism where the DPU actually will be setting energy prices again. And there'll be a rate of return back to the utility companies on that energy price. Right now, on basic service, there is no rate of return. Utilities make no money than reimbursement of the administrative cost, which is minuscule. Mm. It's more complicated than people give it credit for. And all they're going to do is increase your electric distribution charge because of the fact that the way they want to do it will unwind a system that's been in place since the early 2000s. And electricity is actually kind of complicated, as you can tell. It's not a simple thing.
Well, yeah, and I think she talked a little bit about hydroelectric from Canada, helping to offset and eliminating the solar program that I guess is not utilized anymore. But these seems just to be like whittling away at the edges, but not getting at the core of the issue.
Well, you're absolutely correct, right? It's all wheeling at the edges, right? Your distribution charge is composed of not entirely the utility company basically getting paid to do the services plus the rate of return for the shareholders. It's actually a lot of other charges, as you pointed out. The solar credit, we have three different kinds of solar credit. You have the renewable energy credit, which is actually very small now. It used to be a huge part of your bill 30 years ago, actually 20 years ago. It used to be a big part. Now it's actually a tiny part of your bill. It used to be very impactful, right? The Energy Efficiency Advisory Council is actually a major part of your bill now. $5 billion, over almost 2 million customers is not a small amount of money. So, now it's become a major part of your bill. And, there's other charges on there that has been set by the legislature over the course of decades upon decades upon decades, beyond just paying the utility to do their job, to promote particularly renewable energy programs, which I will tell you has been successful. I mean, if we didn't have the deregulation of electricity, a lot of your renewable power options would not exist. For certain things, for example, the legislature, especially the Senate, let's blame someone, wanted to do heat pumps as the sole user for Mass Save, which is, I talked about heat pumps many times, but they took away the conversion from oil to natural gas, which has been the program for extremely decades, very long time, to try to get people oil and natural gas through Mass Save. So, they've also created some programs like, heat pumps as a new cottage industry to increase costs. Solar panels, the same thing. We did home solar panels to three different types of credit. Solar credits, the credit that the governor talked about was the very first one that's now been permanently phased out. That hope to build a new solar panel industry. My personal opinion is that it's not been as successful as it has been, and these subsidies really was not bringing the public benefit I thought it would. I think, my personal opinion, because there's not sufficient other states that have an equivalent solar credit, and there's no other states with solar credit. You don't have a competitive solar credit, which your credit only goes up, not down. It's not like renewable energy credits where all states have some variation of renewable energy credits. So as a result, because it's competitive, the value of the credit keeps declining, but it still has value. So, the lack of actual separate solar credit competition on a national level has kept it artificially high in Massachusetts. I tell folks, don't jump and buy solar panels like heat pumps. I mean, they stick on your roof. How old is your roof? Squirrels get to the wires. And now, if you listen to NPR, actually anywhere on the internet now about solar panel lease companies, and I have friends that have them, where the company's gone bankrupt or they're not responsive, they're out of state, and your silicon is declining because it's aging out, and it can age out in 2 years because the cheaply made solar panels that doesn't create the energy at the beginning as it does 2 years later. And Boston, New England, which also has a lot of weather impact by heat and cold, especially cold, on these panels because they're not well-made panels. So unlike a solar industry where you're constantly changing panels, as one becomes less useful in terms of producing power, you just swap them out as an energy company. But as a homeowner, you don't have the capacity because you're stuck on these long-term leases. And if you buy them, good luck to you. So not like I'm anti-solar, but people need to be aware that this industry has been around long enough that you can find plenty of consumer problems out there on the internet. And they're not a regulated industry because they're essentially home builders. So, this, and the solar credit was funding it all. And I'm, kind of disappointed that this is an example of public policy that did not pan out.
Yeah, it really hasn't found a viable residential application, at least here.
Well, I mean, Solar City got like $1 billion in like energy credits nationally, and it went bankrupt. That was a Tesla company, by the way.
Ah, I didn't know that.
Well, it was an Elon Musk company, and he took a massive write-off on that one. But he sold the company and split it up and sold his lease agreements to other entities, which you have no idea who it is. It's worse than your student loans when it keeps changing hands with banks. It's unregulated consumer behavior industry. So some people listening think the solar panels great, have not had any problems, but we're talking about cheaply made solar panels, and if you look close at your bill, at some point the energy generation in your solar panel is going to be significantly lower than it was when it first installed.
Yeah. Boy, it's a lot of moving pieces. We'll have to talk more about it going forward because that's enough for tonight.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. I mean, you want to get deep into the weeds. I'm more than happy to make your head hurt a lot. Trying to keep it from getting out of control in terms of the minutia. But yeah, I can actually know how some of this stuff works. I mean, it's I get, as you can imagine, I get advocates come to my office and kind of challenge me, and they're reading off a fact sheet, and I read off real life. So
Mhm.
the my resume speaks for itself regarding this area of policy. And even though I'm not the telecom utilities and energy chair, and actually I don't have any problems with that, as you can all hear, because I love doing consumer protection professional licensure. It isn't like I'm not keeping up with some of it. I mean, obviously my committee chair is very complicated. We've talked about this before. So it keeps me very busy of a whole lot of topics I'm trying to keep track of.
Hmm.
But I mean, if I'm ever asked by the chair of the committee or the speaker's office to weigh in, I mean, I'll just do some reading and get some material from the committee and see where things are, and I can probably figure out fairly quickly what's going on.
Yeah. We are speaking the day after the stock market had its worst performance in 3 years, Jackie.
Oh, this morning continues to be a continually declining performance. So it's it's bad.
Mhm. The moments, yes.
Yeah, so if you got your 401ks and
Don't look at it. Just don't.
yeah, just don't look at your pension stuff right now. Financial go see a financial advisor, like I say every show. My guy will tell me to just stay the course. I'm young enough that I can. So it's not like my first rodeo in my pension savings, right? I mean, 03 crash, 08 crash. So yeah, I mean, this is kind of nature of it. I mean, there's a reflection in the fact that you have a lot of variables going on again, but the biggest one is the wild card at Washington, D.C. regarding the president's policies regarding trade. And there's a lot of misconceptions on trade. I was talking to some car manufacturers. It's actually car manufacturing and car industry is part of the purview of my committee. And actually, I have some. Well, I can talk about right to repair another week because I think I have a clearer picture of what's going on there on right to repair. So we're going to table that for a while. But yeah, I mean, it's a trade war that started. Let's be honest, but consumers in America has gotten very used to affordable or cheap goods made overseas. We all have. And the reality now is that, globalization or trade practices will have a symbiotic relationship on economics is looking like it's going to end. And it won't be a symbiotic relationship, especially of our largest trade partners who are Canada and Mexico, not just on manufacturing, but agriculture. You can't grow avocados easily in the United States. It's a hot weather fruit that comes in from Central and South America, right? You like pineapples. Sure, you can grow some in the United States, but reality, you have to come from warm climates south of Texas, right? Cocoa, another product. You like your coffee? Coffee is not made in the United States. It is must be in a hot climate, again, south of the United States. So, as the tariff war begins with basically three countries, this obviously will expand into the EU and Latin America and other places. And the tariffs from the first Trump administration is still there. You just got used to it. You just accept it as part of your life because your wages were so high and inflation was so low during this first administration that you felt it, but you absorbed it. You complained a little bit, but then you just accept it as part of life. Biden didn't take those away. He just expanded the tariffs against China regarding the technology industry. Again, you guys felt it. You guys were doing okay enough, but inflation hit 9%, and it wasn't okay anymore.
Right.
Biden didn't reduce the tariffs, particularly on China. Now you got Trump come in, and he's increased tariffs or threatened to increase tariffs. And those you may not be aware, you don't wait for the tariff to hit as a business. You need that money now before the tariffs hit because customs won't release your stuff until the business in this country pays the tariff. Customs will hold all that stuff in the port until your U.S. business here, the wholesaler, pays that tariff, which then would pass along to the retailer, which is passed along to you.
Right.
Given the fact that wage growth is now back, not exceeding inflation, but we'll find out tomorrow in the CPI report if wages are slowing down or is it exceeding the rate of inflation, which I don't believe it will. You're feeling it. You've been feeling it for 3 years. You're gonna feel it again because why would any business, not wholesaler business, not start collecting extra money now in preparation to have the money ready to go to pay customs? U.S. Customs, your money, not another country's money, your money to pay customs so they can get their goods into this country.
Yeah. And where do those tariffs, where's that money go, Tacky? Just go into the general treasury?
Yep, it goes to the general treasury. So, tariff, we don't have a universal sales tax. We're one of the rare countries that don't have a value added tax or universal sales tax. Sales tax is done at the local level. The closest thing you have is excise taxes, particularly on alcohol. That is as close you can get as a national sales tax, as alcohol excise taxes. To be honest with you, tariffs is the next thing. And they won't call it a sales tax, but it's an indirect sales tax because you don't see it in your register. Like the excess tax is actually baked in the cost of your goods. So other countries do have national sale taxes, but people forget we're the biggest economy on the planet, between 27 and 29 trillion. The EU trading bloc is about 19 trillion, give or take, and same thing with China, about 19 trillion. So we're almost $7 to $10 trillion more than any other trading bloc or country in terms of GDP. We're the world's biggest importer, but we're also one of the wealthiest countries on the planet, given our size. And I know we're all feeling pain in inflation, but we're still buying stuff. I mean, there's no indicator still that consumers are not buying what they need, and we may be changing what we buy, but we're still getting our basic needs done. And it's getting tougher. I mean, you all know eggs or avian flu. I'm not going to blame any administration for avian flu. That's a whole separate conversation about how we do chickens and debate about vaccination and things like that. But I mean, eggs are a big product from Canada. U.S. going to tariff eggs at 25%. It's going to aggravate on it already an existing avian flu egg price problem. Right. And tariffs aren't universal. The president has the ability, and other countries' ability to pick and choose their products, which is historically how it's done. It's not a blanket. So I'll go back to an example I saw on the CNBC, which is the business channel, in the Wall Street Journal, trying to explain some tariffs. And there's a German tariff on U.S. pork, which is extraordinarily outrageous, and then we tariff German trucks. That's why I don't have German commercial vehicles here. And that tariff still exists, has been in there for like 75 years. And it's becoming the cost of doing business that both countries are cool with because they've lived with it so long. There's no reason to change it. But that's a single product tariff.
Yeah.
We're talking about blanket tariffs again. And this is an economy of 8 years ago. This is a whole different world we're living in. So my opinion is that the Trump administration is banking on a few things. This is my personal opinion. Obviously, they're banking on the fact that if you escalate, at some point, someone needs to back down. Well, right now he's playing around with 3 countries, just a moment, of which they're clearly not backing down. 2, he's banking that you and I can take the hit, literally take the hit, until one of them backs down. And they keep moving the goalpost on the tariff dates on certain products because they're realizing the other side isn't backing down. But all countries, the Chinese, the Mexicans, and the U.S. companies and Canadians already stockpiling a mass amount of goods, domestic, inter-country goods now in the preparation of tariffs on the way. So again, your prices are going up today in anticipation for what may or may not happen next, which is bad business and bad for us. So they're hoping that we can withstand it because the U.S. Consumer seems to be strong enough to be able to withstand it. And then, to be honest with you, they hope they happen the first time. They hope you forget about it. Because I'm telling you, you all did. So did I. So those tariffs from 8 years ago are not gone. Accepted as part of our lives, and we've forgotten about it. So I'm going to tell you, they're banking that we're going to forget about it. And once this is absorbed into our daily cost, that's that. But I mean, the stock market didn't crash. They had some bumpy roads. Interest rates was super low. Inflation was well under 2% during the Trump administration years. Inherited a recovering economy from Barack Obama. They'll never admit to that, but same thing happened with Bill Clinton. He was getting a recovering economy from George H. Bush. So I mean, presidents do inherit recovering economies, and some of the opposite. Obama inherited a declining economy under George W. Bush. So this is how it works, right, guys? I mean, you can't time the market, and your presidency can't be timed against the market. You just get lucky.
Yeah.
So, so this is kind of what's driving the stock right now. It's uncertainty, and it's a guy that does in business regulations. Like it or hate it, businesses like some certainty what's going on, so they know what to do and how to address you, the customer. So there's a lot of uncertainty going on, and it's creating panic in the stock market, which affects your pension fund. 50% of the country plus is invested in the market in some form, whether your little private accounts that you're doing like Robinhood or through your pensions. And this includes government pensions and private company pensions, which are also invested in the market. So yeah, I mean, we're in for some serious upheavals. And that's, again, it's all driven by uncertainty and driven by the fact that all businesses are expecting a cost increase. And they'll give you some scary data. I mean, Delta yesterday announced they're revising their 2025 fiscal guidance, reduced it by 50% because they see the potential impact on tariffs, not even the tariff impact, the potential of it happening has already changed consumer spending regarding travel. They had a good 2023, 22, 23, 24, but they're projecting it down because they're seeing a slowing weakness in terms of the consumer able to spend, because they already ran the calculations of what the tariffs mean to your pocketbook. Kohl's announced the same thing today, and Dick's Sporting Goods also announced that today. The two major retailers also announced that as well, and expect all the other major retailers to do so as well. And the 2024 trade deficits driven by the potential of tariffs. As soon as President Trump said they're going to do tariffs, well, big surprise. Every U.S. company was importing like crazy ass, to stockpile like mad, because they're going to try to reduce the impact on you as long as possible until they cannot. Like Chipotle's already announced that they will not pass on cost of customers or increase agricultural prices, namely avocados, lettuce, tomatoes, you've been to Chipotle, as long as they can possibly can. In other words, they've already raised prices on you a lot over the last 3 years. They're going to try not to raise prices as long as they can hold out.
Yeah.
And hope the winds pass, and then the tariffs go away, and then they get you can get your prices back. So, I mean, a lot of businesses are twisting all over the place, trying to figure out how to create consumer confidence.
Well, what really has not been explained clearly, though, is what the end game is. We've got all this money coming in from these new tariffs. We've got all this savings from government layoffs and cutbacks. So what does that translate to for you and me in the end? Lower federal taxes? That has not been cleared.
No, it's not clear to a lot of folks. I mean, you use the state emergency powers to create tariffs using the migrant slash immigration issue plus the fentanyl issue, but that's not going to hold water in the long run. And Canada represents 0.0 like 1 or like not even 1% of fentanyl. It's like 40 kilograms or whatever, some very tiny amount that crosses the border, because Canada actually has its own very strong drug trafficking prevention program up there. So this kind of some smoke and mirrors, but I mean, a lot of fentanyl is coming through the Mexican border and also through our ports. So it's not as cut and dry as you give it. And by the way, have you ever seen shipping containers on the news? It's hard to inspect every single like minutia. You can't inspect every possible inch of a shipping container. It's physically impossible.
You have to kind of get lucky, basically.
Gotta get a little bit lucky. Yeah. So I mean, it's coming through more than just the northern southern border. They're coming through our port system too, and we're a $3.9 trillion importer. We're the biggest importer on the planet. The entire planet's global economy is depending on you as a consumer spending money. If we stop spending money, the planet suffers on a global economic scale. This is just a fact. And what people forget, we're the second biggest exporter after China. on product. It's 2.1 trillion or 1.7. It depends on whose math you're looking at. But I mean, yeah, China's a $3 trillion plus exporter, but we're number two. And then the next biggest one is the EU as a block.
Mhm.
Take away the EU as a block. I mean, it's Germany at under 800, like 890 or just not even $900 billion. So, I mean, the Germans are the next one after us on exporting. So, I mean, when we're exporting, 1.7, $2 trillion, and the next closest one is under a trillion, and the next bigger one is 3 trillion. I mean, people forget we are the second biggest exporter on the planet, even with the trade deficit. But we have the strongest consumer market on the planet. It's reflected in our GDP. So why do you think this happens to be the case? It's not complicated, right? And here's a funny little fact: Japanese car manufacturers are in the U.S., but American car manufacturers are in Mexico.
Mhm. Oh, for a long time, yeah.
For a very long time, which is kind of ironic that he attacks, countries like Japan, but they're actually a major U.S. employer.
Yeah, so yeah, my Toyota was built in Tennessee. Yeah.
It makes sense, right? Think about it, folks. Is it cheaper to build a car here and then sell it to American consumer and American-sized roads, or do you have to build it in Japan, which I've been to? The roads are tiny, the cars are tiny compared to American cars. But you have to make a separate size car in a different plant in your country, not selling domestically, to sell to the United States.
Yeah.
That is cost inefficient. It's cheaper to come to the US, build your car here to American specs.
That's what China did with the MBTA, right?
Yeah, well, that was a whole different fiasco, but still ongoing.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I mean, this is economics 101. This ain't complicated. If you're sitting around and you're looking at your tiny little Japanese cars made by Toyota, because I looked at the cars in Japan, first thing that came to mind is roads are small, cars are small, but they're the same model. And then you got to build a separate car that you can't sell domestically. You got to ship it to the US. Tell me, you guys all tell me, do you think it's better just to come to the US and build them?
Yeah. Obviously, they've done the numbers and they know. Yeah.
They know that, and they're a major U.S. employer. So, I mean, this attack on foreign businesses not contributing is kind of a bit of a BS because we live in Massachusetts, right? Our foreign investment is largely in biotech, pharma, higher education, and other countries buying our seafood, complex machineries, right? But I mean, if you're living in Tennessee, people are getting paid good money to work those Japanese car company plants, right?
Yeah, and putting that money right back in their local economy. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, Ford and GM, went to Mexico, and they're the ones, immediately running to the president's door because 25% tariffs, on their vehicle or vehicle parts coming into the U.S. is problematic. And we talked about this last time. He announced another 25% on aluminum steel from Canada in retaliation because Ontario is now increasing their electrical tax against 3 states: Michigan, Minnesota, and what's the third one? I have to think about that. But also those 3 states say it's a very small part of their energy portfolio.
Yeah.
New York.
This is how a trade war works. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, if Quebec decides to go after us with hydro, New York and most New England's going to get smacked extra hard in energy prices. So, it's they're going to hit you in your pocketbook because they don't like what the president's doing. And what do you think? You're going to sit there lying it down? I mean, the Canadians are actually pretty clever. Their tariffs on U.S. goods largely revolves around stuff they can source locally.
Interesting. So it force folks to buy local.
Yeah, and they're actually much more strategic. They're looking at stuff they can buy local. They have sufficient local capacity to address, and even though there's a price increase in local products too, because of higher demand, they think they can withstand it. And also they target things like alcohol, which is the U.S. is a major exporter to Canada, and Canadians, are able to, not just source locally, but they also can source alcohol from other countries. And that's going to be a lower price than the U.S. product, which is kind of funny because you're just next door, but because of the tariff system, it's going to be more expensive than foreign alcohol. So, I mean, they're much more strategic in terms of doing long-term planning. I'm suspecting the Mexicans are doing the same thing. They're very strategic tariffs so they can have their markets trying to make up the differential. I promise you the EU most definitely will. Again, the EU collectively is almost $19 trillion trading bloc. I'm sure they're going to figure something out. So all countries right now are preparing to try to figure out what they can source domestically, and they'll do targeted tariffs against specific U.S. companies, and it's going to be the biggest, it's going to be the biggest companies in the U.S. going to get hurt first.
Sure, yeah. Coming to the end of our time today, but I can't believe, Tacky, but tomorrow, March 12th, 2020, was the kind of the start of the pandemic 5 years ago.
Yeah, 5 years ago. I was thinking that actually yesterday as well, because my office, I can tell about now, my office got first exposure to an unknown disease through a certain individual who was upset with us and was yelling at my staff. A lot of spitting going on there, that created a potential infection situation. I think we're the first ones inside the state to have somebody yell at us, spitting that turned out to be COVID positive, which we didn't know at the time, and then we had to quarantine a couple of staffers, not knowing exactly what was going to happen. Thankfully, nothing happened to them, and we were closed before St. Patrick's. I got to look at the calendar, but were we closed? No, we closed after St. Patrick's, because I remember that was the last St. Patrick party I went to at the city, and then we closed not far afterwards. You know, it was middle of a Senate president battle, and there was a lot. It was before St. No, it was actually Stan Rosenberg was already Senate president, but there was a lot of things going on.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, but my history in my head gets muddled up here because
but we started this podcast soon after that spring.
Yeah, it was a great way of us to communicate to folks during COVID. And it was good therapy for both of us, as I like to fully admit.
Yes, 'cause at the time I was coming to you from my home office.
Yeah, and your cat was making an appearance.
That's right, my cat.
But no, us was a time period talking about Asian racism was coming, and sadly we were correct. Someone needed to get blamed, and and it happens. And, racism and hatred is a real thing in the world, and fear generates even more of it. And unfortunately, it appears as people here succumb to fear and hatred far too easily with some folks, and they get angry, and they go for the lowest common denominator, and I kind of think through the more complexities of it, of life. But I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. I've been alive long enough. You've been alive long enough. You've seen enough to be, inspired and disappointed.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, but we'll keep shining light on it here for sure.
Yeah. So sad anniversary start, which also resulted in 1.5 million American deaths. Something people forget to talk about.
Yeah, it'll be in the history books, I'm sure.
So with that, office is open, home 42 of the State House. Since I didn't change chairmanships, I'm there. But if you call us, the phone prompt system looks like it'll be saying Catherine Nanatra, who's going to be running the suite. I believe that's the plan. I'm not sure what's going to happen. So if the reception person at 617-722-2370 doesn't pick up, it's an automated system. Wait. Because I'm not going to be controlling the suite. Tacky.chanet, emailhouse.gov, tacky.chan at emailhouse.gov. I'm getting a lot of email. You do know I see your email. The volume is actually pretty insane. So we do our best to get to constituent services first and work our way backwards. At Tacky Chan at Facebook. I'm sorry, State Representative Tacky Chan at Facebook. You can see my comment going there. At Tacky Chan at X Twitter, which had an outage yesterday during a cyber attack. I suspect there's going to be more of that stuff going on. MLHlegislature.gov, MLHlegislature.gov. You can watch public hearings, get bill summaries. Bills are still being assigned to committees, so we're still waiting at my level to see what we get. Obviously, tackychan.org. People do use that contact page. People do look at it and find phone numbers. Please try that resource first before you call us on some human service issues. And of course, me and Joe here on a near weekly basis, we'll do our best to update you. And if you have a question, obviously this is Joe's show, despite, us calling it Tacky Talk. And email Joe, and he'll do his best to weave your inquiries into our conversation. So there we go.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tacky. Always good to talk to you.
Good talking to you. I'll see you next time.